So I finally got around to writing the book, turning my manuscript into a book about 3, 4 years ago. And ironically, Ted Simon, the guy who'd written the first book, was able to help me and advise me, and
Oh,
became quite good friends. And he was able to give me plenty of hints about getting my book published.
oh,
So
wow.
it was a nice wee turnaround there.
Welcome to Story Power, a bi-monthly podcast where my guests and I chat about stories and creativity in all different styles and formats. My name is Lucinda Sage-Midgorden, and my goal is to promote what Dale Carnegie stated in his famous book, How to Win Friends and Influence People. He said, instead of condemning people, let's try to understand them. Let's try to figure out why they do what they do. That's a lot more profitable and intriguing than criticism, and it breeds sympathy, tolerance, and kindness. To know all is to forgive all. It's my firm belief that the goal of most creative people is to try to understand themselves and others. That's what makes artwork of all kinds so compelling. But more than that, the personal stories of my guests promote understanding as well. Roger C. Schenck, a cognitive scientist, said, human beings are not ideally set up to understand logic. They are ideally set up to understand stories. It's my hope that Story Power will help us understand each other better by sharing the stories of my guests. Today, I am talking to Chris Donaldson, and this is episode 119. And Chris has an exciting story to tell you. And so I am just going to let him tell you. Chris, welcome to the show.
Hey, Lucinda, thanks for having me.
I want you to tell about your travels and your motorcycles and your book.
Well, it's a long story. It started a long time ago, as I used to say, when I was born and brought up in Belfast, Northern Ireland, in the 70s when I was a teenager, and it wasn't probably the best place in the world for kids to grow up. There's lots of troubles as they call it, going on. There was people getting shot, bombs going off, and so on. So lots of people my age, when they were teenagers, wanted to get out of town and go somewhere else, like the States or Australia or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
I decided I wanted to go to Australia. And for some weird reason, I decided to go on a motorbike. I wanted to see the world and see what else is going on, see if there's better places out there.
Mm-hmm.
So when I was 21, I left Belfast and got as far as London. And it was November 1979. And most Americans might remember that date. It's in the month that Ayatollah Khomeini took over the American embassy in Tehran, which kind of shut my road east to Australia. So I basically told all my friends that I was going away for a year, and a week later I didn't have anywhere to go. So it was all last minute change of directions. I ended up driving down to Europe and around the Middle East, Israel, Syria and Jordan, and then down to South Africa. Africa was pretty wild at the time. Crossing the desert was probably one of the hardest things I've ever done.
Oh, yes.
I don't know if you've been to Africa before, but it's certainly in the 70s and 80s, it was pretty wild. There was a lot of coups going on. Rhodesia was just been turned into Zimbabwe. Uganda just had got rid of Idi Amin. So some pretty nasty people about. So it was a bit hectic down there. But I managed to get a job in a sailing yacht coming back to Europe, got myself back home again. And the bikes shipped over to the States, picked it up in LA 3 months later, and drove up to Canada, across Canada, and back down to America, worked in the States for a while. And long story short, I ended up in South America, sick and broke, a year and a half later. But it was only 21 at the time, and I had started writing a book about it. I knew it was the sort of thing that was quite unusual, so I'd started writing a journal and turned that into manuscript when I got home. Then one of my friends came up with a book by somebody else, an older guy called Ted Simon, had written a book about riding around the world on a motorbike. I just thought, well, nobody's going to want to hear two stories about riding around the world on a motorbike, so I just gave mine up. and got on with normal 22-year-old lifestyle, which this guy Ted, he was an author, he was a journalist, and I thought he'd written a very good book. I couldn't do anything like that. What I didn't realize at the time, I suppose, that he was about 45 or 50 whenever he was writing it. I was 22, so the stories we were writing about were, things that happen to you when you're 21, 22 are completely different than they do when you're 45, 50 sort of thing. But so I finally got around to writing the book, turning my manuscript into a book about 3-4 years ago. And ironically, Ted Simon, the guy who'd written the first book, was able to help me and advise me, and became quite good friends. And he was able to give me plenty of hints about getting my book published. So it was a nice wee turnaround there. It's very much a sort of coming of age story.
Yes.
Not just discovering myself, but I think it's coming of age isn't so much discovering yourself, but challenging yourself to see what you can do, putting yourself in positions that you wouldn't normally be in, and seeing if you can cope, see if you can get out of them. But you have to get out of them, because if you're traveling on your own, you've nobody else to fall back on.
That's right. Yeah. Oh, wow.
Society, in the Western society anyway, there's always somebody looking after you, your parents, your teachers, or your social services, or the police. There's always somebody to fall back on when you get into trouble. But even third world countries like Africa and South America, you really are on your own generally. Not just on your own, but you're on your own against a lot of other people who are out to get you. So it can be quite challenging.
So did you have any dangerous situations that you had to get yourself out of?
One or two. I mean, I've been thrown in jail a couple of times and that sort of thing. But so Sudan and Uganda were probably the dodgiest spots.
Oh, yeah.
But even Rhodesia, whenever I left home, was still at civil war. 6 months later, when I got there, they'd had a truce, and the guys didn't believe me that I didn't know any better to try and cross it. Luckily, it just happened to have it was between more or less between their civil wars.
Yeah.
But in those days, internet,
right.
News as it happened, if you like. The only information you had was written in a guidebook, which was published a couple of years ago. So you're very much, it's really hard for kids to understand these days. Information can be was so hard to find out. Right. But in a way, that's part of the beauty of the trip, was that going from place to place without knowing necessarily what was going to happen. It was part of the journey that every day unfolded as you went along, rather than knowing what you were going to come up against when you arrived somewhere,
Yeah, really. Well, I think that some people think that because we have the internet and because we have 24/7 news and all of that, that we can predict what's going to happen to us. But really, that is not possible. That isn't.
No, it's the same old information. You just get it quicker, I suppose. But you can plan things when you're traveling. You can plan your routes. So you can find out, you just go on Google Maps and find out what something's going to look like. You get your hotel booked. You find out what the roads are like, where you get petrol. I mean, there's so much detail, so much information.
Well, okay, that part is true. But I'm thinking, well, this is kind of before the internet. My husband and I took a trip circumnavigating the globe in 1996. And one of the places we went was Greece, and we had this plan to go to Epidavros, because I'm a theater person, and I wanted to go see that very famous theater there where you can stand down on the that circular part, they call it the orchestra, and whisper, and the people way up it's an amphitheater kind of thing, way up in the top level can hear you. The acoustics are that good. Well, we were going to go to Epidavros, and then Papandreou died. He was the prime minister during World War II. The whole country shut down. So we were stuck in Olympia. We couldn't go anywhere. Now, that kind of thing you can't plan for. I mean, it's something that even the guidebooks or the internet are not going to tell you.
Always, the unplanned always happens. That's part of the beauty about traveling, I suppose.
Yes.
Because again, in the West, everything is so planned out. If you're going out for dinner, you can check the reviews of the restaurant you're going to go to.
I know.
You can check the traffic. Everything is so planned and
Yes.
And it's great in a lot of ways, but it does take the excitement out of the
Oh, yeah.
journey a bit,
That's right. Yeah. Yeah, it's kind of fun to have the unexpected happen sometimes.
So yeah, I mean, so that was the story. Part of the story was 40 years ago. As I said, I published a book 3 or 4 years ago, and one of my friends said to me, "Well, you never actually got to Australia. Then you went to Africa, Europe, you went to Asia, you went to South America, North America. You never got to Australia. So I said, why not have another go?" So the two of us, I thought, fair enough. Let's see what we can do. I still had the same old motorbike sitting in the garage, so I decided to take it. He was 45 years old.
Mm-hmm.
Thought it was going to be made. May as well bring my old bike as well. So we left after COVID and just drove for 2 weeks and got to the bottom, got to Greece, got to Athens, left the bikes there, and then came back to work for 2 months, 3 months, and then bike out again 3 months later. So we did it in legs because we both have families and jobs to go to. Though we're self-employed, so we can sort of work as well in a way. So trouble was, Liam was a guy who talked me into going, got to Athens, and then he changed his mind. He said he didn't want to go any further.
Oh no.
So I was stuck in a position that I either give up with him or else go on my own. And I'm not the sort of guy that gives up like that. So I ended up not planning doing somebody else's trip on my own. But I eventually got through Greece, Israel, Turkey, Iran, and Tehran, and found myself 43 years after the occasion standing outside the American embassy in Tehran, which is still there.
Wow, yeah.
It's been locked up the same as it was 1980, whenever it was, 79. It's called the Museum of Espionage, if you want to know.
Well, maybe it was. Who knows?
Could be. So eventually made it to Dubai, and then through Iran again into Pakistan, and then India and Nepal. And then last year I was able to fly the bike to Australia. So finally made it to the original destination 44 years after I left. So that's what I mean. It's a long story.
It is, but I don't know. Australia was one of the places we went because we have a college friend who lives in Adelaide, South Australia, and we wanted to visit him. And so we went there from India. We had contacts in almost every place except for India. Which was it would have been nice to have some contacts in India. But when we got to Australia, it was like it's set up for tourists. Everyone was so hospitable and welcoming. And I thought Barry was going to kiss the ground when we got off the plane because it was really difficult for us in India.
India's difficult, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's a culture shock. It's a beautiful country. And, I would like to go back again, but it was a huge culture shock. And I'm a highly sensitive person. So having people come up and want, get in my face and want to sell me something every few minutes was like really jarring to me. But, so what did you think of Australia finally when you got there?
Well, I loved Australia. I mean, I really had a great time there, and I met a lot of people that I knew. In fact, I met one guy who I left the bike with, who I'd sailed with on the sailing yacht from South Africa to Europe in 1980. I hadn't heard from this guy since because being a bloke, blokes aren't very good at sending Christmas cards and birthday cards and things like that. But I managed to track him down on Facebook and said, "Hi, Cam, I'm in the country. Do you want to meet up for a beer?" And after 40 odd years, we were able to sit down and have a beer together, same as we had in the boat in 1980, which is lovely. And we got on just as well as we did 40 years ago. It was if time hadn't passed in between times. We were both a lot wrinklier and grayer and stuff like that than we had been there.
Right.
But it's fascinating. And that's happened quite a few times. I've met people, as I say, we don't keep in touch generally, guys. The nice thing about the internet is you're able to punch in people's names and where they are, and track people down after 40 years. 2 or 3 other people is able to do that with.
Yeah. How long did you stay in Australia?
About 3 weeks. But I'll go back. I suppose one of the strange things I've always wondered is if I'd left Belfast 2 or 3 weeks before the Ayatollahs showdown, I probably would have got through Iran okay before the revolution.
Mm-hmm.
And if I got to Australia at that stage, I'm sure I probably would have stayed. So it could be sitting here talking with an Australian twang rather than an Irish accent. So it's always interesting to think back to the little things that happen in your life that made a huge change of direction, one way or the other.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Right. Yeah. And we all have those. We all have those unexpected things that happen that change the trajectory of our lives.
Yeah, I mean, whether it's walking into a restaurant, walking into a bar, and meeting somebody that ends up being your wife, if you have gone to the pub that day, you've never met them, or so many unusual things, or uncertain things happen. We try and plan everything so much, but so it's all down to the luck of the draw at the end of the day,
Right. Yeah, exactly. Which, if you let go and just look for the miracles or look for the opportunities or, the cool things that can happen, then that's kind of a neat way to live, I think. Just living in
Yeah.
the moment. Yeah.
Well, you can call it luck, or you can call it whatever you want, whatever you like. You get good luck and you get bad luck. Good things happen to you and bad things happen to you. But I think the more positive you are,
Mm-hmm.
you're going to get better. The good things are going to happen rather than bad things.
Mm-hmm.
It's a self-fulfilling prophecy. I think whenever you think
Right.
bad
Yeah.
things are going to happen, the bad things will happen.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And one of the things that we discovered was there were so many helpful people. Like, for example, when we were in New York, we got on our hotel was in Manhattan, and we got on the wrong subway going the wrong direction. And somebody helped us and said, "Oh, you're going the wrong direction."
Yeah.
And you think of New Yorkers as being, not very helpful, but they
Yeah.
were. And then the same thing happened, I think, when we were in the Netherlands. We didn't know where we were supposed to pick up the train or something. And somebody heard us talking because we're looking at the schedule. Oh, are you okay?
Excuse me. Sorry, just coughing.
Oh, no,
A
it's
bit of a
okay.
cold.
And somebody came along and stopped, and they happened to speak English, and they helped us. And so,
Yeah.
things like that happen all the time, I think. But
Yeah. Well,
you,
I think
you
people are
know,
good all over the world. I mean, even so, you're talking about Iran again.
yeah.
People are so friendly, so hospitable there, even though they're the
Mm-hmm.
boogeyman of the West.
Mm-hmm.
Our governments keep blaming for all the trouble. But I mean, a couple of times I pulled into petrol stations and they couldn't use a credit card because of the sanctions.
Oh,
So they have their own
right.
credit card system, which is different.
Oh, right.
So a couple of times I had to say to somebody, if I give you $20, can you buy the petrol for me? And the guys would say, yeah, fill up my tank with petrol, and refuse to take the money. Because I said,
Oh,
so you
yeah.
enjoy, you're here as a visitor, you enjoy our country,
Yeah.
have that as a present, which
Yeah.
is always nice. The fact that it was only 10 cents a gallon or 10 cents a litre was probably a good thing. Could help too. But
Really? Yeah, right.
water was more expensive.
Yeah.
But they're lovely people, lovely, friendly people, always out to help you. I think people do see travelers as they imagine themselves in your position, and they usually
Mm-hmm.
are considered and helpful.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. One of my favorite guests was a filmmaker from Iran. When I first got on Podmatch, I met him, and we
Yeah.
had about a 3-hour conversation. I didn't, of course, use all of it because I had to be careful for him.
Yeah.
But it was just so fascinating to talk to him. He was such a neat guy. So yeah,
Yeah.
I think you're right. And we think of I don't know how people think of Americans, but sometimes I think of people from other countries as everybody thinks the same. And then I have to go, wait a minute, wait a minute, wait a minute. No, that's not true. Not
Yeah.
everybody's the same in that country. And, you have to just look for the little jewels when you're there. You have to um, be open to to the
Yeah.
people and what's going to happen. Yeah. So
Yeah. No, people are generally good.
I think so too. So what's it like living in Belfast now?
Well, I came back to Belfast and trying to find my business and developed it into a property business and so on.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
Um, I've had ups and downs, and ended up falling out with the banks during the credit crash, as you had in the States as well.
Oh, yeah.
But I always find that lessons I learned when I was traveling were able to, even crossing a desert, I was able to put those into perspective, to fight with banks and to work in business and to get on with people or not get on with people as well. It was a great sort of learning process, and to set me up for the rest of my life. And the book's called Going the Wrong Way because obviously I went the wrong direction, ended up in Argentina after leaving for Australia. So you can't get much more in the wrong direction than that. But I find that sometimes you just have more fun going in the wrong direction, the road less traveled. So if you don't follow the crowds, go your own way, and just make your own tracks is the best way to do things very often.
I love that. I haven't had a chance to read your book yet, but I love the title. Say the title again.
Going the Wrong Way. Chris Donaldson.
I love it. I love it.
So there's lots of going the wrong way in it, and the different escapades to get up to, from result of which,
Yes.
But I think the sort of Western society certainly has this, health and safety, and people have to know exactly where you are, especially with computerization, mobile phones, and everything's sometimes got so sensible and so organized.
Yes.
It's nice just to break free and go off grid a wee bit.
Right. It is. It is. Yes. Yes, I've kind of done that with social media. I don't check into it very often anymore. I might go and then once a week or something and wish all the people happy birthday that I missed,
Yeah.
And of course my blog and podcast posts go to the social medias, but I don't go and make a lot of comments anymore. I don't know. I'm just,
Well, you sort of realize after a while, I think with social media, Facebook, it's not actually, it's fraud book. It's nothing really is right. People put the best things that happen to them on it, but it's not actually what is their real life. Is completely different. Probably it's just a face they want to show.
Exactly. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Yeah, I do have some former students on there who are have young children, and sometimes they'll talk about, oh my gosh, this is happening, and I'm not sure I'm a good parent, and so I encourage them, but mostly I don't post my own posts anymore because
this is something good things come from it, but I think for kids especially, they've got. So, it's quite addictive. It's been designed to be addictive, to get people to spend more and more time online.
Really?
And kids these days, I think, are forgetting how to socialize.
Right.
So, it should be called anti-social media, really, because it's really not. So social is, if you're socializing with somebody, you're meeting them in a bar, in a restaurant, or a coffee shop. Something, you're not staring at a phone and talking to people.
That's right. And it is very different being in a room with someone and feeling their energy. I mean, I can do that a little bit when I'm talking to somebody on Zoom, but it's really not the same.
Not the same, no.
Yeah. And so there are some of my guests that I'm planning on meeting in the flesh this year. So yeah, I mean, I just think that it's more fun to do it that way. In fact, I actually did meet one of my guests a couple months ago. I guess I can't remember exactly when it was. It was a few months ago, which was really nice. I loved it. She happens to live in Arizona, so it was very easy for us to meet. But yeah, I want to meet my guests.
Yeah, no, it makes a difference. I mean, people, as you say, people do behave differently when they're talking face to face with somebody, even in a good way and a bad way. I mean, you mentioned India. The trouble with India is that most people, when we're in the West, would talk to somebody, you're standing sort of 3 or 4 feet away from them. Whereas in India, they're talking 3 or 4 inches away from each other.
Right, yeah. They have different body bubbles.
There's no respect for for social space, Probably because there's so many people living there.
Oh, yes. Oh, yeah. Yeah, really. I mean, I thought it was a wonderful country. It's just the whole being bombarded all the time with, the beggars on the street and the people who wanted to sell me things. And that part was difficult for me. But it is, it has a really interesting feel about it. The country does.
It's a lovely place to go to, but it's a lovely place to leave as well.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Mm.
Well, I think some
So,
people probably think that about the United States too.
yeah. More probably talking about the driving is absolutely atrocious.
Oh my
You
gosh.
just you just got to assume that everybody's trying to kill you because generally that's the way they're driving is
Yes.
they are trying to kill you.
And only inches between you and the car in front of you, or
Yeah.
the bus in front of you, or the motorcycle in front of you, or the moped with five people on it.
And then
Oh,
you see a mother pushing a pram with three kids behind her walking across a motorway without even looking around, you know.
I know. Oh my gosh, I
It's
know.
amazing.
It is amazing. It's amazing they don't have more accidents, really.
Well, I think they
But
do. I think they've about 10 times, they checked with about 10 times as many accidents per mile as
oh,
the likes of the UK does, certainly, you know.
yeah, right, yeah.
And the cows all over the road as well don't really help
Oh no. Oh yeah, that's right. That
because,
doesn't help. Right. Right, yeah.
uh,
Oh, oh. Well, I am so happy that we finally got together. Yay. Do you have anything else you want to share that I have not asked you?
well, I suppose just so the first journey I made was very much coming of age. I was 21, 22.
Mhm. Uh-huh.
But
Uh-huh.
when I left a couple of years, 2 years ago now, sort of heading in my 60s, 65, 66.
Uh-huh.
So it's very much a coming of old age, which is probably going to be as different a change of lifestyle as becoming an adult because it's the end of your working life. And
Mhm.
so hopefully get more time to enjoy myself. So,
Mhm.
but I
Mhm.
think a lot of people get to the stage and they're too tired to do much. They just want to sit in the garden and play a game of golf every week.
Uh-huh.
I think I'd like to show that what I've done is by doing the same journey I did when I was 21, 40
Mhm.
years later, that anybody, as long as you got your health and fitness to a certain extent, you can still get out and do it, you know.
Mhm.
Just it's just harder to get your head around it.
Really?
Uh,
Yes. I'm retired and my husband is about to retire in about 2 months. So, but we're creative people, so we're not really going to stop working. It's
yeah,
just that the work is different and it's something that we want to do. It's a creative something that we want to
yeah,
do. And we still plan to travel,
yeah,
and a lot of people in the United States do that when they retire. They travel around the country or they travel outside the country, and yeah, because they're free to do that. They don't have to worry about going back to a job in 2 weeks or 3 weeks or however many weeks.
yeah. Well, the nice thing about America is so big and so varied. There's so much to see without even leaving the country.
Mhm.
And
Yes,
it's a
it's
great
true.
place.
Yeah, it is. That's true. And we also have Canada and Mexico attached to us.
That's right.
So we can go there too.
Yeah.
There's
Yeah.
lots to see in those places. So,
Well,
yeah.
I'm hoping to get back to the States next year. So hopefully, so COVID has put a bit of a dent in everybody's plans over the years, last few
Oh,
years.
yes, really. Yeah. Mhm. Yeah, and but I was teaching from home because we had to, at the college, they decided everybody was going to teach from home, except for the things that like welding or something that you
Yeah.
had, or pottery. Um, but yeah, that's when I decided to start my podcast because I learned how to use Zoom, and it was so fun. So I'm coming up on my 4-year anniversary.
Very
And,
good.
and yeah, now I have a host of people that I can go visit around the country if I want to. Yeah,
Right.
or even around the world because I've had people from UK and the Netherlands and Spain and Australia. So
Yeah. No, technology has really opened up the world to all sorts of things,
yeah, yeah,
positive ways, you know.
yeah, really.
Which brings me on to giving myself a wee plug for the book. It's available on Amazon. Anybody wants to have a read of a good travel book?
Yes. Well, I think that uh memoir, they're so personal. A memoir is
Mm,
so personal, and it doesn't matter if it's the same as somebody else. The the outer trappings of it is the same as what somebody else has done. What happens inside you is different than what happened inside them. So, yeah.
Yeah.
I will put all your social medias. I'll put the name of the book and the link for it on my show notes. So,
Right.
yeah, so people will be able to get it. So thank you so much. This has been really fun.
Really enjoyed it. It was great talking to you.
Good talking to you too. Thank you. Before I let you go, I would like to advertise a new YouTube channel that my sister Celeste and I are starting called Classic Cinema with the Sage Sisters. And it is going to air on February 5th, exclusively on YouTube. Hope you come check us out. Our first episode, we talk about the movie Love with the Proper Stranger with Steve McQueen and Natalie Wood from 1963. It's about a couple who have a one-night stand, get pregnant, and have to decide what to do about it. So hope to see you there. I hope you enjoyed the show. If you like what you heard, please share it with a friend and give us a rating and/or review on your favorite podcast app. It will help people find us. I invite you to join my Patreon community at patreon.com/storypower, all one word. Or if you like, you can subscribe to Story Power on Apple Podcasts. It's my aim to build a community where we discuss the stories we love and talk about what we learned from them. I offer extra audio content and story suggestions to my patrons on both platforms. Remember, as Philip Pullman said, after nourishment, shelter, and companionship, stories are the thing we need most in the world. Let's spread the story love. Until next time, this is Lucinda Sage-Midgorden. Thanks for listening.